I think I'm turning into a fat phobe because of vacation with a friend. I went on vacation about a month back with some friends. None of us are a healthy weight. I'm 35 m, 6 feet, 240 pounds. But we don't struggle with basically day-to-day life like the wife of one of my friends does. And I spent the entire vacation having to listen to it. I don't know how much she weighs exactly. I'd say 350 or so. And while 400 would surprise me, it wouldn't be shocking. They booked an extra seat on the plane for her because of her size. And there were still complaints about the legroom. She's 5 feet 7. Most of our travel on vacation was Ubering around the city. And because there were 5 of us, we were going Uber XL, so we didn't need 2 cars. But every car we got into, no matter what it was, there were complaints about the legroom, about how uncomfortable she was, and especially about the seatbelts. Basically every car had the seatbelt lock on her if she wanted to be able to buckle up. And then she'd be complaining about not being able to move. Like, that's the point of a seatbelt. Give slack until it can't anymore. Then lock up to save the life of the person buckled into the seat. I'm sorry, every car manufacturer on the planet doesn't take your morbidly obese body into account with seat belt designs. But I think it might be a tad more dangerous for everyone else on the planet if they did. Maybe a little? There were more complaints at the restaurants we ended up at. One of them was incredibly valid. A tiny little diner that only had 4 top tables that said they could seat 5 of us. Only to leave no one any legroom. Any time an employee or diner walked behind any of us, it'd bump our chair and we'd bump into each other. Which sucked. And I know that kind of situation comes up for her in her life a lot more than it does in mine. But my God, there's a point where you have to have personal accountability and stop blaming the world for what very much is a you problem. I legitimately feel like I've started becoming fatphobic because of this. Now a couple people I work with that are about her size are annoying more than they would in the past because of how much space they naturally take up, especially in the common areas like the break room. And the best person I could talk to about this, my fiance. She's not a small person. She's at least 100 pounds. Maybe 120. Less than the subject of our story. But I don't want her to start feeling subconscious around me. I love her. I love her body. And I don't ever want her to feel shy around me in any way. Has anyone out there ever dealt with something like this? How did you manage? Edit: since I caused a bit of confusion. My fiance is around 205,210. Somewhere in there. I find her fucking gorgeous, but I am terrified that talking to her about this will make her think that I'm starting to find her unattractive. 100,000 not the case. I'm gonna venture to say that it's mostly this person's attitude that's annoying as hell. If she was thin, she'd go on whining about something else. Whiny people are plain annoying no matter their size. You're not fatphobic. You're intolerant of negative people who complain constantly. My mill is like this. Almost morbidly obese. And struggles with standing and walking. She has arthritis in her hips and knees. Yet won't lose any weight to help alleviate her joints. She's diabetic. Yet won't stop eating sweets. At 75 years old, she will actually start speaking like a little kid if you suggest she reduce her sugar intake. I don't wanna. At the end of the day, I'm frustrated with her attitude. And not necessarily with her weight. Edited for grammar. OMG, people read the post. He says 100,120 pounds less than the subject. I'd argue you're more so annoyed by the entitled attitude of the larger person than you are by her weight. I don't know how tall your fiance is, but I saw in the comments she's 210 or so. Which is generally larger for women unless they're over 6 tall. If you were fatphobic, You would be looking at her with disgust instead of lust. You're just bad attitude phobic. I don't think you're turning into a fat phobe. You're just tired of hearing someone complain about literally everything. I used to be morbidly obese, 5 feet 3,265 pounds. I wouldn't complain because I know it's my problem, not everyone else's. You obviously aren't a fat phobe if you find your fiancé attractive. Everybody in this story is morbidly obese, but only one is bothering you. Just an FYI about seatbelts, they're made for the average man. Which means they're not made with women in mind. Not petite woman either. Look it up. People can be assholes regardless of their weight. In regards to the seatbelt thing, they're the child safety locks for car seats. When you pull the belt out all the way, it will activate the locking mode so that as it goes back in, it won't come back out, keeping you snug. This is not how most people like to use seatbelts. If you're fat, like I am, this will happen far more often. To avoid it, don't stretch it out all the way. If you're too fat to not do that, my apologies, I feel your struggle. Did you hate it because she was fat? Or because she never stopped whining? Complainers come in all shapes and sizes, and all of them are a major pain to deal with. This doesn't have to do with her being fat, it has to do with her being insufferable. I would say it was your friend's wife's attitude more so than her weight being an issue. If I were 400 pounds, I'd be a grouch too. On the flip side, I know of some tiny broads that just bitch and bitch and bitch as if it were a sport. It's really all about attitude. I think this person would complain if they were being carried on a pedestal. I'm short, 5 feet 2, and my feet rarely fully touch the ground in a chair. Things are often out of reach or designed to be carried by someone with longer arms like baby pods. I don't complain constantly because that would be annoying. Even though it's not within my control, and I'm not that far out of normal. Really appreciated a holiday in Vietnam though, where someone told me I was Vietnamese size, and indeed, all the chairs were perfect. Edit: to be clear, I'm saying it's the constant complaining that is annoying. First off, idgaff if I'm fat phobic. Yes, I'm afraid of being fat. No, I don't believe in treating people badly just because they're fat. However, their obesity doesn't entitle them to have special everything. I was obese and it was my problem and nobody else's. This is what we classically call fat logic, the ridiculous entitlement of believing that everyone around you is trying to make you uncomfortable when you live in a body that is several standard deviations away from average. There are plenty of people in larger bodies who are not entitled, who recognize that they live in a world where most other people are smaller, and do not constantly visit their complaints on everyone around them. Your friend is not one of those people. You're not fat phobic, you just hate one particular woman. Rightfully so by the sounds of it. I had a friend like this too. She was fat and wouldn't do anything to improve it or make it better. That's also the attitude she brought to everything else in life. This isn't my fault problem. Some people are just negative and shitty regardless of size. It isn't okay to be fat phobic and hate an entire group of people because you had one bad experience with a fat person. Mostly, we try to make ourselves smaller and apologize for existing. I don't think you're fat phobic, I think you just had a bad experience with an annoying person and now everyone that reminds you of her is annoying. It's hard to travel with someone that travels differently than you or has different abilities. But she just sounds insufferable. It was probably a rude awakening for her, realizing how difficult everything was at her current size. And she's just blaming everyone else. I don't think your wife would be offended that you're annoyed by this person. God, living like that is terrifying.